Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and today I'm joined by Sean Ross, Sapp of Fightful.com. So how are you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm glad we could make this work. Thank you so much.
No worries, mate. Now on my channel, we don't just have wrestling fans. We have all sorts of people on. So why don't you explain to the people what Fightful.com is?
We cover pro wrestling, MMA, a little bit of boxing as well. We try to do things a little bit differently. We want to have a bit of lighter coverage, a little bit more humor in ours sometimes, but we still cover really serious topics as well. We just want to do things a little bit differently than what they've been done in the past 20, 30 years or so. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think you're one of the best. You're one of the best sites around. Uh, Unfortunately, I don't have a subscription, but I do check out your stories when I see them on Twitter.
Whenever we get Fightful Select onto the main website, we'll be able to hand out like some complimentary subscriptions and free trials and stuff like that. We'll get you set up with one for sure, but I appreciate that. Like when we started Fightful, we wanted to break news. We wanted to be a legitimate source for news. We wanted to bring interviews, podcasts, a lot of different things. And I think we've been able to do that so far. We're still trying to make our way in the MMA world, but in the pro wrestling world, we've made a nice impact. There are some things I definitely want to work on. Like you mentioned, we have our premium service, Fightful Select. Right now, that's on Patreon. We want to get that on our main website. And hopefully once we do that, hopefully by next year, we'll be able to do a lot more cool stuff too.
Now, the first time I ever saw you like on camera was the Wrestle Tour Quizlemania.
Well, you're in luck. There might be some news on that front. I might pop up there again very soon.
So if somebody sent me a message, I'm not sure whether they want me to say their name, so I won't. But they said, "Can you ask him about if he's gonna come back onto Quizlemania?" So there you go. You never know.
I would like to, because Luke is cheating. There's no way that Luke is not cheating to win all of it. There's no way. He's not that smart of a guy. He's not that intelligent, and I don't believe that he could win that many Quizlemanias. And quite frankly, had I been on the show each time, he wouldn't have won any of those. He wouldn't have won any of the Quizlemanias. I got screwed over and over again by Adam Blompiade and Oli Davis and all these people that conspired against me because they were afraid of somebody outside their little circle being the Quizlemania champion. They're afraid, Anthony.
Yeah, I got no doubt about that, mate. Obviously, all love the rest of the talk guys. They're great guys.
They're all right.
I've had Adam on the channel before.
Yeah, I watched that a few weeks ago. About 3 weeks ago, I watched that.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate that.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you giving him a platform. He needs all the attention that he can possibly get because that's Adam. Like, it's not enough that he hosts this huge show. He's got to go be on everybody else's show too, because Adam thrives on that attention. And anything that he can do to spread his word, he'll get out there. That's Adam for sure.
I'm all about making new stars.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you're doing here. And see, that's Adam's problem. Adam doesn't want to build new stars. He wants to keep Luke Owen at the top. He wants to keep all these guys. He won't build new fresh stars like me or Wale or Mega Ran or Denise. Lord knows Wale needs all the help that he can get too. Wale is not nearly famous and as famous as me. So I was very excited to see Wale, Grammy nominated artist, on Quizlemania. It's just a shame that Adam held him down as well.
Yeah. No, I wanna go back to fight. I wanna go back to Fightful because
Sure.
because obviously there's a lot of journalists out there. Obviously, we have Dave Motors and Ryan Satan. I think that's how you say name anyway. So did they inspire you to start a Fightful?
When we so I used to work for Wrestling Inc., which is the most visited wrestling website in the world, and I liked how things were going there, but it wasn't enough for me to pursue as a full-time job. And I had asked for a few things there that I wanted to better secure myself, and they couldn't be accommodated, so to speak. And probably that week, the owner of Fightful.com, Jimmy Van, sent me an email, and we set up a call. He said, "Hey, I'm starting this website called Fightful," and I was like, "You know what? I like the sound of this. MMA, boxing, pro wrestling. I like the sound of this." This was spring of 2016, and we got started the first week of July 2016. UFC 200, when Brock Lesnar went and fought, I was like, man, if we're doing MMA, pro wrestling, and boxing, we have to have Brock Lesnar fighting in the UFC. Like, we have to cover that. So we got the ball rolling and moving, and we relied a lot on, like, we had Vince Russo and Shane Helms and Matt Riddle and a lot of UFC fighters that had their own podcasts back then. But quickly that kind of dissipated, and we became more of a news site. It's been a pretty wild ride, but it's wild how it started, because I always told people I didn't want to start my own website. I wanted to help somebody else's vision, and that's what we've been able to do, fortunately.
I'm going to be 100% honest. I always thought Fightful was your thing, to be honest. No offense.
A lot of people do. They always think that, like, I own it or something, but I don't, and I prefer that. Jimmy Van, who is he's on our Wednesday show, the Listen Ya Boy. He is very successful outside of what we do, and he actually covered pro wrestling as a job 20 years ago. He had his own website back then and made a full-time living of it for a while. Then when that fizzled out, he went and got into the advertising game and marketing game, and he's done really well there. But a few years ago, he wanted to start up a new website and talk to several people, several big names in wrestling media. Fortunately, Bill Apter went to bat for me. Bill Apter told him that he should talk to me because I had worked for Bill for years, and it's been really good. There's a lot of security to that, knowing that I can create what I want, and as long as it's good, then he's going to be happy, and we can help create jobs for other people in wrestling too, which makes me very happy.
Yeah, people tend to underrate the word of mouth. Like, if somebody outrates you, there's nothing better than having that recommendation come from somebody that's credible, so to speak. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's very important to have that credibility. And early on, I did not. Like, I would report news and people would say, "Who is this guy? He's not Meltzer. He's not Mike Johnson. He's not Wade Keller. Can we believe him?" And then later, Ryan Satin, of course. But like, there were a lot of people that did that. And I mean, there still are some people that do that. But I mean, this is my dream job, getting to cover and talk about pro wrestling all the time. That's the only thing I really want. Outside of doing some charity work, it's all I want to do for a living. And it's important when you do that type of thing that you're honest with your viewers, that you treat them well, that you give them real information and not like fake information or anything like that. And there are still going to be people that doubt it, but the credibility is very important.
Yeah, as a journalist, we really have your credibility, don't you?
What was that? Sorry.
I said, as a journalist, all you have is your credibility.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the most important thing, because if you go out and you put out fake news, crap news, if you go out and put information out there that isn't truthful, especially today, as you know, on social media, if you put out something that isn't true, the actual person who you write about can just come out and say, that's not true. And they can provide evidence instantaneously. It didn't used to be like that. It used to be like, well, somebody would write it. It would go into print. It would pop up a few days, few weeks, maybe even months later. And then there was no real outlet for the wrestlers to talk about it unless they went on TV and did it. They didn't have social media. They could write a letter to maybe another media outlet or something. But today, if I write something that's wrong about Renee Young can come out and say, that's not true. That's completely different now. And you owe it to the audience, you owe it to the wrestlers and the companies that you're covering to have that credibility and be honest.
Yeah, in a weird way, I think it made journalism better, not only in wrestling, but also in mainstream journalism. As you say, the people can instantaneously respond to you.
I love it. I love interacting with people too. And it helps us out a lot too, because if we write a story about, say, Kofi Kingston, we can tag him on Twitter. Maybe he'll see it. If he likes it, he'll retweet it. That helps us out a lot. If he doesn't like it, if he thinks that it's not honest, he can message me directly or publicly and say, that's not true. Hey, here's the real story behind this. I've had countless people that have contacted me and said, hey, there's a little bit more to this. There's more information, so to speak. It's supremely helpful. I don't know if I could have done this job before social media. I would not have known how to develop those contacts the way that I have now. And hats off to people like Dave Meltzer who did that for years and years and years. Without the benefit of social media, he'd meet these people at events, call them up on the phone, like a lot of stuff like that. It's a different world now.
Yeah, I do think Dave Meltzer can sometimes get a bit of a, I don't want to say hard reputation, but I think he does get sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it isn't.
Sure. Yeah, it really depends. I mean, everybody's got their own opinions and all that stuff. To me, he's another guy working in the business, and I'm thankful for the doors that he's helped open and all that. But yeah, to me, ultimately, people got to remember it's wrestling. It's wrestling, and it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's not that deep. That's why I'm not a big fan. That's why I'm not a big fan of when people go on these Twitter rages and all these things like that. Because at the end of the day, it's only wrestling. I'm not saying you can't give your opinion, obviously, but as long as you do it in a constructive way, I'm happy to listen.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there are sometimes, like on social media, I'll bite back at somebody who's like kind of being mean or something like that to me or one of my friends or something like that. Otherwise, it's like, not worth it. Just mute them and move on. But I do think that people get awfully upset over wrestling opinions a little bit too much.
Yeah. So there's one thing I've always wondered. Yeah, you know when you get these wrestlers on to do an interview for your site, yeah, how easy is it for you to convince them that you're a decent guy? Because they must get 1,000 interview requests a day.
Yeah, well, see, most of them are familiar with my work because I've already written something about them, or because I mean, there's not a lot of people I haven't reported on so far, and we're very fortunate that Fightful is looked upon fondly by a lot of wrestlers because that's pretty easy. A lot of them, I don't think they even care. They're like, okay, this is me promoting myself. This is a way to get some of my products out there to promote my stores and stuff like that. And there are some that I have like acquaintances of and personal relationships with, friendships with, stuff like that. But even if they're my friend, they have to understand I'm going to be objective. And if they don't like something I report or an opinion on wrestling, not to take it too personally in that regard. But there are a couple of them that I've had to maybe do a little bit of convincing, but usually they're familiar with Fightful and with me to another degree. So that's very beneficial for me, because early on it wasn't. I think it was 4 years ago, I got the first interview with Muhammad Hassan since he had retired from wrestling. And I just reached out to him and I was like, hey man, listen, I know I don't have that many followers. I know I don't have that big of a following, but I got a really nice platform. If you could give me a chance, I could tell your story really well. And I think he was even surprised at how that turned out. Sometimes you just got to let the work stand for itself. There are sometimes when I'll ask them for interviews and I'll send them examples. I'll be like, hey, here's an interview I did with John Moxley. Here's one I did with Becky Lynch. Here's one I did with Braun Strowman. That way they know that I've got a body of work that will do them a service, so to speak.
I've done that before, not with wrestlers, but with like YouTubers and things like that.
Sure.
Because on my channel, I have everybody on. From I want to get wrestlers on eventually. I have sports people on. I have everybody on. Cause I love to hear people's stories.
Yeah. And when you send them stuff like for you, for example, and you have Adam Blampied or Lawrence McKenna or somebody like that on your show, people can look at that and they say, all right, he's putting in the work. He's getting interviews with all these people. He's doing the work that you got to do to make your name and make your way. And a lot of people admire that.
It's definitely underrated thing hard work. I think nowadays people expect all the acclaim with no hard work, especially from me.
Yeah, and it doesn't come easy. It doesn't come easy. I don't recommend it to anybody, but I did free work for 5 years before I got paid to do anything. That's not ideal, but I was doing everything I could. I was training as a wrestler, as an MMA fighter. I was managing MMA fighters. I was doing commentary. I would go to MMA shows and help like set up the cage. I would tape people's fists. I would help do social media for different companies. There was a lot that went into it. I would write for free, anything I could do to get experience. That way, when somebody said, hey, are you able to do this? I would be able to say, yeah, maybe not as best as everybody else, but I can do this and this and this and this and this. And I would have that experience to call upon.
You just said that you used to take people's fists for the MMA events when you were breaking in. So did you do it for anybody that was small at the time that went on to become a big star, or not really, or just local guys?
I didn't tape anybody up that ended up being like that, but one of the events that I worked actually had Jessamine Duke there, who is now in WWE NXT. She was one of Ronda Rousey's horsewomen. She was from like 45 minutes from me, so I met her there, and it's funny because she was one of the most highly touted local MMA fighters at that time. And I looked at her and I was like, my God, she needs to be a pro wrestler. I even told her that. I saw her. She's a 6 foot tall woman who looks like a model. Like TV doesn't do her justice. She's ripped. She's in incredible shape. And back then you didn't see a lot of 6 foot tall women in pro wrestling. Maybe Michelle McCool was kind of close, but this was 2011, 2012. This was 8 years ago. And I even said to her, man, you should give pro wrestling a try. But understandably, at that time, she was one of the top 145-pound prospects in the world. And that was at a time when Chris Cyborg fought at that weight, and a lot of people, like, that was the weight division to be in. Little did I know that maybe 4 or 5 years later, she would get into wrestling, but it would be Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey that got her into it. That one would be probably the closest that I can think of. There were definitely some former UFC fighters that were on their way down that would cross my path. But Jessamine's the one that stuck out, and I was fortunate enough to go get to train with her once, which was a blast.
Speaking on Ronda Rousey, when you heard that she would come into pro wrestling or WWE in particular, what was your initial thoughts?
Well, my initial thoughts were, holy crap, I'm getting a big story here, because I actually broke the story of her training to be a pro wrestler. I got some information that she had attended, I think, a seminar with Rocky Romero of New Japan, and she had been in the gym training for pro wrestling. And I was like, wait a second, like, is she doing this for fun, or is she doing this for a career? And the person who told me said, oh no, she's doing it for a career. And then they said, by the way, Jessamine Duke is doing it too. Shayna Baszler's doing it too. Like, Shayna had already been in pro wrestling, but that they were all training for it. And I was like, oh my God, that's big. So to me, that was one of the first big stories I broke. So I was excited about that. When I heard Ronda was transitioning over, I thought it was great for a couple of reasons, because I'm sure you saw her work. You saw how well she took to the in-ring work, right?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like a 5 second cameo, and then Kurt would get
Yeah.
back in the ring. But she did amazing, considering her first proper match without WrestleMania.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Judo particularly translates really good to pro wrestling. And the reason that judo transitions really well is you're throwing people, you're slamming people, but you're also doing it in a way that makes them land flat on their, or not flat on their back, but fairly safely. Ronda was able to bring in a whole lot of throws that were second nature to her, but that we as wrestling fans had never seen before. I had seen a few because I had covered MMA. But also in judo, you're learning how to bump. You're learning how to roll. You're learning how to get up without hurting yourself. You're learning a lot of the things that takes a long time to learn in pro wrestling. And all that was just normal to Ronda Rousey. And that really, really helped her. I miss her wrestling so bad. I mean, I don't miss her promos so much, but I definitely miss her wrestling.
My personal opinion, when I heard that she was transitioning over, I'm going to be completely honest here. I just thought she was coming over because a star in MMA was training a little bit and she needed something to keep her name out there. That's what I honestly thought at the time.
Yeah, I'm glad to see how it all unfolded, really. I thought, like you, I thought we were going to get the 5-second cameo. She's going to drop somebody on their head. That's it. I even thought if they did a match, it would be a quick squash match. But I thought, all things considered, it came out pretty well.
Yeah, I think her WrestleMania main event with Becky and Charlotte. Obviously, Becky and Charlotte are amazing as well, but I think she had her own in there, considering both Charlotte and Becky had a lot more experience than Ronda.
Yeah, and I mean, I wish that the match would have ended a little bit better. I wish the shoulders would have actually been down. I thought that was a little bit messed up, but also Ronda was working with a completely broken hand at that point. So it's hard to really, I mean, I say it's hard to fault her. The ref shouldn't have counted if her shoulders weren't down, but also I think it should have been a completely different finish. Becky Lynch probably should have tapped out Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, because Ronda was going away anyway, so it would not have hurt any.
Yeah, I mean, she's not been back since. It's been almost a year and a half. People wouldn't have forgotten it, but it would have built better for a story if she ever came back.
Because a lot of people have the perception that when she loses, she goes away anyway. So why not play into that?
Yeah, and I mean that makes her look more like a heel, like she's taking her ball and going home because she lost. Or if you want to work the smart fans because they had her lose, I think you're dead on. I think that would have been a really good way to play off of the perception of her.
Because obviously when she lost in the UFC, she had one more fight and then she lost that one and then she retired. So it would not have been a bad storyline to go with.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, like you said, she lost to Holly Holm. She disappeared for a year. She lost to Amanda Nunes. She disappeared forever. She loses to Becky Lynch. She disappears forever. That is the wrap on Ronda Rousey. She hits the bricks whenever she loses.
Yeah, I personally feel when she lost to Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes, she would lose. She beat herself basically because she wouldn't do what made her good in the first place. Like she completely abandoned her judo and started being a boxer.
Yeah, that's the thing. And quite frankly, I think her coach is heavily responsible for that. I mean, Edmund Verdian, if you look at the career trajectories of Jessamine Duke and Shayna Baszler, once they went and trained with him, it went downhill for all of them. Jessamine learned a lot of nice hip throws and judo throws, but their MMA records did not prosper there. Now, I don't know if that's directly contingent, but with Ronda Rousey, she was very unique because when she hit people, they went to sleep. And that was not happening a lot in the UFC women's division then. You would get a lot of TKOs, but you wouldn't get a lot of people, a lot of women that were putting each other straight up to sleep with punches. And it definitely wasn't because of technique. Ronda Rousey's technique was not great with punches, but she had that insane core strength because of all the time she had spent doing judo. So she had a lot more power in her punches because your punches comes from your legs, your ass, your midsection, all that
Yeah,
power
yeah,
from there. And she had so much of it. But then she got in there with Holly Holm. Holly Holm had been training her entire MMA career just to specifically beat Ronda Rousey. You could see that in her early fights. She would avoid the clinch because you don't want to get thrown. She would avoid the clinch like she was facing Rousey, and then she beat the brakes off of her. And then Amanda Nunes, well, when it's Amanda Nunes, that she's the greatest women's fighter of all time, in my opinion, and not a lot you can do about that. But I think that Ronda Rousey could probably still beat a significant number of the top 15, but I don't think we ever see her fight again.
I don't think. Yeah, obviously, I don't know personally, but she doesn't feel like doing like she has the hunger to fight anymore. Like you have to have a certain mentality to want to fight people, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
I don't think she has that mentality anymore. Obviously, I could be wrong, of course, but that's how I see it from the outside.
Yeah, the thing is, I was surprised she came back after she lost to Holly Holm. I was very surprised. I definitely don't think we see it now, unless the UFC is like, here's $15 million. If they offer her like some crazy amount of money to just fight some rando, I think she'll do it. But other than that, I'm with you. I don't think she seems like she wants to.
To be honest, when it comes to MMA, I do know a little bit, but I'm not good enough to be like a proper analyst like you are. Like I know a little bit, but I'm mainly, I put, let me put it to you like this. I like MMA, but I'm not good enough to be like a proper analyst like you do with it.
Well, we just hired a new MMA guy, so I'm going to be doing a lot less of that. I'm very excited about that because I haven't been able to give MMA the attention it deserves. And I mean, I've got my criticisms of MMA, but it's like the way that you know how people complain about 7-hour WrestleManias.
Yeah,
It's like that every Saturday for the UFC. Every Saturday is a 7-hour show. It starts at 6 p.m. local time. And if you're lucky, it ends at 1 a.m. So every single Saturday is like this brutal 7 straight hours of just fights, not even including us getting ready before, doing the post show, then waking up the next day, seeing what we missed. It's very brutal. So I'm very excited to kind of move away from covering that as much, but we've got a very fitting person in Shaquille Majuri who will be starting to cover that in August.
but I just wanted, I just wanted to apologise in case you saw me yawning. Obviously, that was no offence intended.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. But MMA, it's a very it can be so much fun, but man, like the downtime in between the fights, it feels like they take 40 minutes to get a fight started, and the reason they do that is because they've got all these contracts and deals, right? They've got all these deals with ESPN.
Yeah.
ESPN wants them to fill up as much time as possible. Us as fans are probably like, hey, let's get the next fight going.
Like, if you got rid of all the bullshit, yeah, I reckon every single UFC event will be no longer than 3 hours minimum, maybe 4 at a push.
Yeah, as we're filming this, I think there's a show with 14 fights on it tonight. I don't need to watch 14 fights. They're not going to all be good, but that's the nature of the way the UFC does things.
Obviously, you're lucky because you get to watch it at a decent time, so to speak. But here in the UK, it doesn't start till 1 a.m. And sometimes it can go to like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, why do I stay up and watch this stuff, man? Especially at
Did
the
you
moment.
ever?
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I remember people in the UK were upset one time because a Bellator show went till like 6 in the morning and it cut off the main event because they had to play Peppa Pig that morning at 6 a.m. So Peppa Pig cut off the Bellator main event.
Honestly, I didn't see that one because I don't really. This is how much of a casual fan of MMA I am. I don't really watch Bellator like that. Obviously,
to be fair, Peppa Pig was probably better than the main event that they had going on that night. I think it would have worked a lot better.
Obviously, I respect Bellator and every single fighter in that promotion, but I just don't watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I did not watch last night's Bellator. I passed on it. I had to cover SmackDown, but I passed on watching that. It's not appointment viewing for me, unfortunately, and that's again, unfortunately, where Bellator is right now.
No, so I want to take that to wrestling because that's my expertise. That's my expertise, so we can have a better flowing conversation because I actually know what I'm talking about with wrestling.
Yeah.
So who was the first wrestler that you probably interviewed? Not like a 5-minute thing, like a proper sit-down interview?
John Moxley. I went to Cleveland to do a haircut thing with AEW. Awesome Kong cut my hair off. And while I was there, they were like, hey, do you want to interview John Moxley? And I said, yes, I do. So it's when he had the eye patch on. So he sat there and did the full interview with his eye patch on. Another one that I really liked, I didn't get to really sit down with her, but Becky Lynch was a good one, obviously. She was very nice. She was very complimentary of what we did. Muhammad Hassan was one of my favorites because that helped launch my career. Nobody had really talked to him in a while, and I got to do that. But the three that stick out to me are Moxley, Becky Lynch, and Muhammad Hassan.
My personal favourite of yours was the one that you did with, obviously I don't think it's your best one by any means, but my personal favourite one was with the one that you did with Kaylee Ray. I just really enjoyed that one.
I was shocked. So obviously she had not talked to a lot of people since she left AEW. And I was backstage at an indie show called Black Label Pro. It was the day of AEW's last live pay-per-view in Chicago. I was there and I saw her and I was like, I want to interview her so bad, but I didn't want to bug her. I didn't want to bother her. If she didn't want to talk, then I didn't want to bother her. And I mentioned that on Twitter and she's like, no, let's talk. Let's do an interview. And I was so pleasantly surprised. She could not be nicer. She is so wonderful. She is so nice. She is so easy to talk to. She is exactly like her wrestling character. She's smiley and bubbly and happy all the time. I really dig it. I was so fortunate that she was willing to do that interview.
Yeah, she comes across like an absolute sweetheart.
Oh, she is. She's amazing. She's amazing, even more than you could imagine.
I tell you one thing, when Cody puts somebody over as being a really nice person, you know they must be nice to a certain extent. Because Cody doesn't put people over like does he on the microphone like out of storyline.
Let me tell you something about Cody. So I'll reach out to him sometimes for stories. I'll be like, hey, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? Sometimes I'll get an answer. When he doesn't want to answer me, he sends me a picture of his dog. He just sends me a picture of Pharaoh or one of his other dogs. And I'm like, okay, not getting an answer there.
So do you just laugh or do you get offended or do you just do you just blow it off?
Oh, I just blow it off. I know it's in good fun. He seems like a pretty good dude in that regard. It's just his way of saying, I'm not going to answer this question for you. And I don't want to say, I'm not going to answer this question for you. So at least I'll send you a nice picture of my dog.
Yeah, cool, man. Because I've heard stories about him being a dick to people, and I've heard
Yeah.
stories about him being really nice to people. So it all depends who you are, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, some people you have those types of working relationships with. Other people you don't really. And Cody and I have never been like, oh yeah, let's have an in-depth talk about wrestling. I reach out to him if there's something pertinent that I need to ask him about AEW. Maybe I'll get an answer. Maybe I won't. I don't think I've talked to him in about 5 or 6 months, even on a story aspect of it. But I mean, it's like that with a lot of people. It's like that in WWE and in every other company as well.
Yeah, man. I can understand why sometimes they don't really want to say anything because
Sure.
obviously with certain stories it's ongoing. Like obviously, I was speaking out of him, and not many people are going to openly talk about that without speaking to the right people first. If you know what I mean.
Sure, and a guy like Cody, he has to protect his own company. Like he
Yeah.
can't tell me everything that I want to know. He has to protect his own company, his own storylines, his own stuff, and that's a part of it. That's just a part of it. I wish I could get all the information, but unfortunately I can't.
Because sometimes a story can be part of a storyline, can't it? If somebody's potentially leaving the company, could do work, and they don't want to reveal that to you because you obviously reported, and then it will ruin the story. So yeah, it's all about
Yeah.
looking
Yeah,
in.
I think they get it. I think they understand it, and they should. But yeah, it's an unfortunate reality sometimes, but fortunate for them.
Have you ever been worked by something that you read online, or like something that Dave Meltz has reported, and then it hasn't happened like that, or somebody else has reported, or maybe like like that Adam McCall thing that went online
Yeah.
yesterday. That was clearly a work. I
Oh
don't.
yeah, very clearly. Very clearly. I mean, there are storylines that have worked me all the time. Um, the one that stands out, the Riddle, Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman thing, like, the backstage confrontation. There were a lot of people that say complete shoot. Then there are some that say complete work. Based on the stuff that I heard and the people that I reached out to, I don't think it was a shoot. I don't think it was a work. I think that Paul Heyman was trying to motivate Brock Lesnar by saying, this kid's talking shit about you. This kid's talking trash about you, knowing he would say something. And I think that Paul also knew that Matt Riddle wouldn't back down. I think he was very aware of that. And that when Brock saw that he went up to this guy and this guy was like, too bad, bro. I think that Paul thought it would motivate Brock Lesnar and be like, damn, I like this guy. That's what I think happened. I can't prove that's what happened. That's what I think happened. That's the one that stands out to me. But there was a verbal confrontation there. But that's the main one that comes out to me. And I'm like, because I think that Paul knew you could make money with Riddle and Lesnar.
Yeah, that sounds very plausible because there's one thing about Paul Heyman, he loves to start shit sometimes, even to his own detriment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sometimes, and we hear that all the time. Like people that Paul Heyman would want pushed, Vince McMahon wouldn't like on purpose. So sometimes I would imagine that he had to go that different route in order to make things happen the way that he wanted.
I do think Paul Heyman is a bit of a con man, as a lot of people call him. And I'm very surprised people haven't learned that about him by now. I don't know whether you watch AJ Styles on Twitch, but he was talking like Paul Heyman.
Yes.
You know what I'm gonna say, don't you?
Oh yeah, like it's hard to ignore the things that Anderson, Gallows, and Styles said. Ultimately, Vince McMahon decided to fire them, but they think that Paul Heyman could have kept them from getting fired. I'm surprised Paul Heyman didn't do that because I liked them. I thought they added a lot to AJ Styles. I thought they helped him a ton.
Yeah, I personally think Paul's a very slimy person. Like, if he can benefit him, he will do it. And if not, then he doesn't really care, to be honest. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you completely.
Like, I've had conversations with people where Paul Heyman promised to do them something on Twitter, like get them a meeting, and then he hasn't done it. So I just think that's really slimy.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that for sure. There are rough business practices all over wrestling, unfortunately, and that's one of them. There's a real lack of communication there.
I get sometimes things don't work out, but don't say you can do stuff if you can't. That's my
Yeah. That my way is always saying, like, if my boss wants me to get something done, I'll say I'll look into it, I'll find out, or I'll try. Like one of those. If I don't know that I can get something done, I'm not going to give somebody that false hope.
Yeah, I personally, AJ was a bit naive because he's notorious for not keeping up to his word. Like, if you ask anybody in ECW, they would tell you he was notorious for being a liar.
Yeah, I would agree with you. A little bit naive there, for sure.
But saying them leaving, doing them wonders, obviously they've got to impact and they're doing amazing so far. I know it's only been
Oh yeah.
I know it's only been 1 week, but they are doing amazing. Like I haven't seen this many people talk about TNA like impact in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. And not only that, but the night that they did their podcast, for the love of God, their podcast did just insane numbers. It did really, really great numbers. So, that's important. That's something that they gotta capitalize on. Now they've got their own pay-per-view. Like, I'm sure that's going to be hilarious. I bet it's going to be really good.
I'm assuming that might be on what is that website called when they have AEW on. I can't remember, but I think it's called something like no, I can't remember. But I guarantee it'll be on a streaming platform somewhere, won't it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be on Fight, but
Yeah.
I also think Impact's going to try to get involved with this somehow. They've already filmed it, But yeah, it'll be on. They'll eventually release a lot of stuff about this.
You know, TNA was smart, yeah. Well, Impact, so I keep calling them TNA. I need to stop calling them Impact. But I think if Impact was smart, they would try and get a joint deal to have it on their streaming platform and Fightful. I don't know whether that would work or not, whether they have exclusive.
I don't know. I know that I know one thing. I've been trying to get a hold of Gallows and Anderson to interview them. I want to talk to them about like everything about like there was a lot of stuff. Did you watch their Talking Shop interview? Did you watch the one when they their first release interview?
Honestly, mate, I didn't. I need to go back and watch it now.
Oh, it's good. It's good. They talk about a lot of good things, but I want to interview them about all the stuff they didn't talk about. Like, you know, there's so much stuff. There are endless wrestling topics to talk about.
Yeah, that's part. That's why I think sometimes getting these wrestlers on for interviews can be a good experience, but also it can be a bit tiring because you end up asking them the same question they've already answered like 50 times over.
Yeah, that's a thing. WWE actually got mad at me because I asked Kofi Kingston. I asked him about the time him and Vince wrestled on a plane, but they wanted me to ask, oh, what's it like wrestling in front of no fans? And I was like, man, he's going to get asked that 15 times today. I don't want to ask him the same question. So that type of stuff is important.
Vince loves wrestling people on planes. Like he wrestled Kurt Angle on the plane.
Yeah, he did. He loves to do that. You would always hear about him trying to test people.
Obviously, you know, if it was nowadays, obviously it wouldn't happen, period. But if it did happen nowadays, it would have been recorded.
Oh man, isn't that a shame that we don't have footage of any of this stuff? That's the thing that that's the thing that I wish that we had.
I would love to have seen what let's do and cut and then open up the door. Then open up the door of the plane. I can't remember the whole story, but I believe that was the story. They nearly opened up the plane door by falling.
Oh my god! There are so many. There's man. I think they could do like full documentaries on just that plane ride from hell, just the stuff that we heard about from that.
It would be cool to us, but I can understand why they don't do it. Because obviously it would make them look really bad. Because some of the things that happened on that plane, somebody could have died from it, someone didn't care.
Yeah. I mean, that's stuff was super dangerous.
Like, wasn't it got all that flashed out? And just incredible how to get a wheelchair and to get in through customs. I believe that was a story anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I completely forgot about that. I mean, I'm trying to look right now, like all this stuff that happened on there. Dustin Rhodes singing to Terry, Kurt Hennig and Brock Lesnar fighting on the flight. They had to be separated by a lot of people. There was, I think, Michael Hayes and Bradshaw getting into a fight, and then Michael Hayes got his hair cut by Sean Waltman. Apparently, Ric Flair was dancing around like Scott Hall. They said that he wasn't involved in any incident, but everybody thought that he was because he got released right after that. It was a mess, man.
You know, Michael Hayes need a kiss on Linda.
What was that?
You know, Michael Hayes didn't need a kiss on Linda.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. You know what's crazy? I just looked it up. The day that this happened was also the day that WWE changed their name from WWF to WWE. So there was a lot of attention on the company that day. because they had been WWF forever. And that day, they're like, oh, we're changing our name. And then later that day, all this stuff happens on that plane. That's got to be terrible.
Yeah, I can imagine if anything like happened like that nowadays. They would instantly be arrested and then sued and then everything like that. Obviously, I think Ric Flair got sued for one of the hair roasters or whatever they're called. Didn't they?
Yeah.
Like,
They've had their fair share of plane mishaps. I think they're about once every decade they seem to have another plane issue. Like they had the Saudi one last year. I think they need to. Oh wow, sirens going off out here. They need to get their plane issues under control.
what you done?
Yeah, what have I done? Oh, you can hear everything in this town. What have I done?
So yeah, but the one thing I would say, a lot of these wrestling nowadays tend to be a lot more business savvy, if you know what I mean? Like they don't seem to be as wild as they were back in the 80s and the 90s and even the 2000s to a certain extent. It seems to be a lot more normalized, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, and I think it has to be. I think that's the way things have to be now. People are more smartened up.
Obviously, because we've had a lot of people die early from stupid reasons, and I think nowadays people are obviously going to live longer because there's obviously more education about drugs and that.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of people's problems, how did you obviously you talk about this on your podcast, but I personally feel like the Jeff Hardy storyline was a bit tasteless, to be honest. I just didn't like it.
I agree, especially considering the fact that is a pending court case and this happened less than a year ago. We don't know that his issues are really behind him. We've had these stories about him before, about him overcoming and how he's not an addict and how he fights back the bully. And then this stuff keeps happening. It's very, very frustrating.
I think Jeff Hardy is one of the most, I don't really call him I don't want it. I think sometimes you can take for granted his position. There's so many wrestlers that would look to be in Jeff's position, be a multi-mega star and have millions of dollars, and he takes it all for granted.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do a lot of this stuff that plays on real life catastrophes. And sometimes real life coming over into pro wrestling is what a lot of people need because, quite frankly, people who read our website, they're usually clued in about the real life happenings of these people. But it doesn't always mean it's good just because it's real. Like, I could knock over this stuff behind me, and just because my boss got on a show Wednesday and said, "Oh, what about you knocking all that stuff over?" It doesn't mean it would be entertaining. It would be stupid. It would be stupid, and it's stupid to bring up Jeff Hardy's stuff. The Matt Hardy Lita Edge thing made for a little bit better of a story, and everybody was okay with it. This has a lot of people in Jeff's own family concerned for a lot of different reasons.
I mean,
It's tasteless.
obviously, you're speaking like Matt Hardy. Of course, I think that was completely justified to say what he said.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because obviously, when somebody's your relative, like your brother, you want the best for them, don't you? And I think that was completely justified to say what he said.
Yeah, and Matt's a guy who has been through it. He's been through troubles and all that stuff and overcome it and got his career to new heights as a result. I think, like, especially the stuff that he said about his brother, he's concerned about his brother, and their family has concerns. So when he says something like that, I tend to take it pretty seriously.
Yeah, because there might be somebody watching that has family members that are struggling with alcoholism and substance abuse, and them seeing that might bring up some personal, some real heartfelt emotions. Like, people don't watch wrestling to be pulled into their reality. They watch wrestling to have an escapism from their reality. You know what I mean? So I think them doing a storyline like that was really ill-advised.
Yeah, I can tell you that personally that pro wrestling has helped me escape all the crazy stuff that's going on around us in the world, especially in America right now. It's the chance to not think about all the negative, and unfortunately sometimes wrestling magnifies the negative. I'm okay with them playing off of real life stories and real life social issues and real life happenings. But like I said, it just doesn't always make it good. It needs to be good. That's the most important thing, is to put on a show that is entertaining and compelling and fun and good. And not everything that's fun has to be like, oh, awesome. Fun can be like on the edge of your seat, wondering what's going to happen next. I haven't wondered what's going to happen in this crappy storyline. It's just been a bad storyline.
The only good thing to come out of it, from my perspective, is Sheamus. I think he's become. I'm not going to say one of the best heels, but I think he's become a solid heel in this storyline. You might
He's
disagree.
in phenomenal shape. He is in insane shape. I've never seen him look this good physically.
Back in like '09, '10, I couldn't stand him because I was one of them fans that always hated on people back in them days. But nowadays, because of his YouTube channel, I developed a lot of respect for him as a human being and as a performer.
Yeah, and I mean, he's indirectly responsible for Edge coming out of retirement. Edge said that they went on a bike ride for Sheamus's YouTube channel, and when Edge fell off the bike, he was like, "Oh, my neck is fine. I think I should wrestle again."
I saw that. I saw that video. I was really surprised he went from that to actually getting back in the ring. Because falling off a bike is not taking a bump on the wrestling ring, is it? So I was very,
Yeah, which I mean, depending on how hard you fall off a bike, it could hurt more. But hey, who knows, man?
yeah. I'm just happy that this storyline's over with now. By the look of it, and then they can move on to something else.
I hope that it's over. You can never be too sure with WWE, though. They might give us another couple months.
Please no, please.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine what they could cook up with a couple more months of this terrible storyline?
I was, I was thinking of something. Imagine if they got acted to play Jeff's children.
Oh man. Oh, I don't even want to think about what they would do. I don't even want to think about what they would do.
Luckily, I don't think they would put children on TV right now with COVID. So
Yeah.
at least that's one good thing. That's gonna come out of it. They can't do the, they can't do that. They can't do that bit of the story.
Yeah, I don't think they'll get kids in there either.
Of course not, because obviously COVID. Let's just say somebody by God did contract COVID from being on WWE. You give them a really bad look, wouldn't it? Well,
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
so obviously you work with a load of people. So how do you select people to work with for Fightful? Do they just contact you, or do you have like a process?
Uh, do you mean like a process for people that work with Fightful?
No, I mean, say like if somebody comes contact you and say, I think I can work for you. Be all,
Oh, well, it depends. Sometimes we're hiring, sometimes we aren't. We generally have a pretty solid staff that stays there. But if first off, everybody always asking for advice, like, oh, how do I get my stuff out there? How do I do this? My best advice is just make content, whether it's video, editing, writing, anything like that. Just do it. That way you have it. I always encourage people to. My email is on my Twitter bio. Email the package of stuff like that and basically their pitch. We're not always hiring, but I do keep everything on file like that, though.
yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Cause this is seriously what I thought. Yeah, I thought that all they had to do was ask you, and then they basically just start writing like articles. I know that sounds pretty dumb, but that's what I thought. Because obviously you don't really, because I don't really, to be honest, I'm quite new to Fightful, so I'm not really
Yeah.
familiar with how your site works.
Yeah, it's a different process everywhere else.
Yeah, because obviously I know it works with Cultaholic and things like that, because
Yeah.
they talk about it like all the time. Well, not all the time, but they make it be obvious how you can approach them to join their team when they have openings coming up.
Yeah, every place is different, and ours is definitely way different. I've worked at a lot of different places, so I've been able to pick up different approaches and see what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And I think that's given me a little bit of a unique perspective because I've worked at very small places, I've worked at very big places, and I've worked at corporate places. But I kind of like the way that we do things. We leave our schedules kind of open-ended for a lot of our people and let them work on their own and do that. Some of them have specific assignments and all that, but always the best thing to do is to email basically a package of content, examples, and a pitch to me. And even if we're not hiring, I put it in a folder of applicants, and then whenever we are, I look through it.
Yeah, so if any of you guys are interested, just email. I
Yeah.
assume your email is on your Twitter, isn't it? Like your
Yes,
email.
it is.
So
Yeah, Sean at Fightful.com.
so if any of you guys are interested, just drop them an email, and then one day he might contact you if he likes it enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for going into that, Sean, because a couple of people asking me, and you asking how we apply, so I just thought I'd ask you because a lot of people.
Yeah, of course. I always that's one of the most asked things is how do I get started? How do I pursue it? How do I get noticed? Well, you don't get noticed, so to speak. You have to make somebody notice you, but you have to do it with good work too. But the best way to get into it is just start. There's no big secret thing. You just start writing. Everybody can start up a free website, and you have examples there. News writing, columns, all results. It's best to be able to do everything as opposed to just one thing.
Yeah, so basically it's good to be diverse in all sorts of types of media, isn't it? Like just being really good in one area. It's not really. I mean, it's okay, but to be as big as you can, especially nowadays, you have to be good in multi different areas. If you know what I mean. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
diversity and versatility are very important things as it relates to your content. That's why I say write news articles, write columns, write results, show me how you format a press release, show me how you do all these different things, because if I know that I can trust you with all those things, it'll be a lot easier.
So, as we talked about earlier, I've interviewed wrestlers. So, have you ever interviewed somebody where they absolutely treated you like a complete jabroni and they completely treated you like a chump?
Sorry, what was that? You cut out a bit.
I was saying, have you ever interviewed somebody where they treated you like a chump? If you know what I mean.
Not really. Almost everybody. I get asked that here and there. I don't think so. Everybody's been pretty good. Everybody's been pretty good to me. Yeah, I don't have any big bad stories about that.
Because there are certain time where yeah, story about interviews getting treated like a complete jabroni, and it's been a horrible interview for them. And I, and I always think, what the point being a dick to somebody that is just trying to promote you?
Yeah, that's the thing. I have had some people that are like, "Hey, pay me," and I'm like, "Nope, that's not what we're doing here. It's a trade. Like they promote themselves, I get content, so it's even there." And they have to know that ultimately, if I'm going to do an interview with them like that, I'm trying to help them and help myself. And if I help myself, usually it does help them.
Yeah, I always say, if you want payment, I'm not doing it with you because obviously you don't really want to promote yourself. You just want payment, which is fine. But obviously, I'm just starting out, so obviously, we obviously I can promote you and what you're doing, and you can promote me, and it can just be a nice partnership, so to speak, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree.
So, obviously, we've spoken about you as a journalist, but obviously, you are a wrestling fan. So, how did you start watching wrestling?
I started working in wrestling. The first day I worked, January 4th, 2010, was when I got into wrestling media. And that's because I had trained as a pro wrestler and as an MMA fighter. I was starting to see some symptoms of concussions and injuries and stuff like that. I actually broke a vertebrae in my neck. And I was like, this is not something I could do long term. But I wanted to be involved in the wrestling business or covering it somehow. I wanted to either be, and there's no, like, I mean, you can't just get into wrestling and say, I'm going to be a wrestling manager or announcer. And to me, that was a different path. I didn't have those connections. I didn't have the ability to travel back then like I do now. It was a little bit different than that. But covering wrestling, I could do from my home. I could do that from my bedroom, my office, anything like that. So I was like, okay, I want to do this. I've always liked writing. I've always been good at writing. So I reached out to Bill Apter and I pitched a column, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's basically how it got started.
I basically was saying, I know you're basically was saying, how did you start watching wrestling? That's what I meant.
Oh, how did I start watching wrestling? That's funny. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was at my grandmother's house, and we were flipping channels, and I see a cage in the middle of the screen, and on one side of the ring there's Ric Flair, and on the other side of the ring there's this guy with face paint on, and it was the Great Muta. And then I see another guy with face paint run out, and that was Sting, and it was the night that Sting tore his knee up. But I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? This is awesome. Like, are they fighting each other? And they were. And ever since then, any wrestling that I could flip by and watch, I watched. And pretty quickly, I found WWF, and that was it. But it was that Clash of the Champions on TV. I just happened to be at my grandmother's and saw Ric Flair, the Great Muta, and Sting, and I was hooked.
So was Ric Flair guy, or was you more a Sting guy, or who was your favourite?
I was a Sting guy initially. I loved the face paint. I loved the colors. That really hooked me. I loved the Ultimate Warrior. I liked the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. I liked bright, vivid colors. That stuff really stood out to me, and I liked it.
because when I was growing up, obviously I'm a lot younger than you. So when I was growing up, I grew up around 2002 to like 2010. So obviously, I'm not gonna say, I am gonna say, see that, see the one my guy growing up, and then I moved. I once I knew that actual, actual, actual match quality. I started like, I started liking people like Brian and Joe and Punk.
Yeah. Those are the guys that I like too. I'm more of a work rate guy now, but back then I didn't know what the hell it was. I was just like, okay. But now I like to see transitions and submissions and chain wrestling and good spots and stuff like that.
The first time I saw Samoa Joe when he was facing CM Punk in the two match. I believe it went the 2 match series in Ring of Honor because back in 2002 we used to have this thing called the Wrestling Channel in the UK, and it used to be non-stop wrestling. So you can imagine in my house, in my household, it used to be.
Oh yeah. I would record things on a VHS tape and just rewatch them over and over again. Like there were episodes of Raw in 1995 that I have watched 10 or 15 times just because I would watch it every day over and over again, or have it on when I was playing with toys or video games or whatever. And I would just keep watching it until the next week when I would tape over it.
So when did you realize wrestling was a work or fake or whatever?
Oh, I think I knew pretty early on. I think like probably a couple years into it, I knew that it wasn't real because that's around when the UFC came out. And I could tell, I thought wrestling was real, but then I saw UFC and I was like, oh, okay, that's real. There's no way that this wrestling stuff is real. Plus, I think my mom probably told me. I feel she didn't like wrestling anyway, so she wanted me to not get picked on for it. So she probably told me that it wasn't real just so I knew.
My family told me straight away, and they didn't tell me to be a dick, but they just said, that's not real, don't you? And I was fine about it.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like it didn't change anything for me. I liked the competitive aspect. I liked the athletic aspect. I liked the performing and the entertainment aspect of it. Those are like so many of the things that I like rolled all into one and displayed even better. So I didn't mind at all.
I compare wrestling to like a movie. Obviously, nobody fights for real in a movie. But it's all like the story of the fight, isn't it? And how they get into the conflict and how the conflict ends up. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's the thing to me. It is that perfect combination, and it doesn't have to end in like an hour or an hour and a half like a movie does. It's got elements of movies, TV shows, theater, sports. I just love it so much.
If we're being honest, the quote unquote, the quote unquote, I hate calling it fake, but the most time it's been scripted or felt scripted within the Attitude Era, and that's probably the most popular era there's ever been. Because obviously, nobody believes that there's a guy from the Valley called the Undertaker. But back in,
Yeah,
back,
exactly.
but back in the 90s, people didn't care, so I don't know why people get so hung up on it now. Like, when they've only just discovered that it's work.
Yeah, that's the thing. I actually had somebody the other day say, they were talking about conspiracy theories or something, and they said, "Oh, well, wrestling's not real, and you still believe that?" And I was like, "What makes you think that I believe wrestling is real? Like, I make a full-time living talking to people about how it's not real." So I think if this makes any sense. I think there are more people who think other people think it's real than people who actually think it's real. There are
Yeah,
more people out there that are like, oh, you think it's real, than people who really are like, oh, this is real.
and somebody that likes boxing and MMA, you can tell it's not real by the first 5 minutes. Because if it was real, nobody would do any of the moves that they do. Because
I know, yeah.
after them, you have to be a willing, a willing participant in the move.
Yeah, like there are little things like a rear naked or a rear chin lock. That's nobody that has taken a wrestling class would be stuck in that for a minute. They would turn in, they would take you down, they would do a lot of different things. It's little things like that that stand out, but I'm okay with it because I want the theater aspect of it.
Yeah, that's why I have a problem with the star rating. To be honest, I mean sometimes people can take it way too seriously. I mean
Yeah.
I understand why they like the sport, why they like the sport aspect of it, but I think sometimes they can take it way too seriously.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, I mean, it's ultimately fun. There are some things that I get upset or peeved about, but ultimately, if I didn't enjoy it and love it, I wouldn't even be doing it.
To be honest, I mainly get upset by the storyline and the characters, because that's something I know a lot about. Because I watch a lot of movies and I read a lot of, I listen to a lot of books, so I know a lot about storylines and characters. So that's the only thing that really upsets me. Like, to be honest, like the stuff inside the ring, I'm not really that, because I've left. Because obviously I've never been trained, so
Yeah.
I'm not really bothered by the in ring stuff. Because I don't know the difference between, like, you know what I mean. So
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's minimal ultimately. Like, if I see somebody very clearly working with somebody, like I saw there was a great spot where Marco Stunt hit a Canadian destroyer flying through the air. But my problem with that was I saw Matt Jackson's brother holding him up so he could get hit with a pile driver. And I was like, oh, man. Other than that, I don't really mind as much. Or people waiting around for like 10 minutes. Like, catch me.
look,
I'm not big on that.
like, you know, when people do die that outside the ring, yeah, I don't like it when they just stand there for like while the person runs across the ring, jumps there, yeah, like goes off the ropes, and then does like a suicide dive when they've been standing
Yeah.
there. I think that's what you're trying to say, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, sometimes we all know it's a work, but sometimes we want to suspend disbelief a little bit, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Like, there very few spots do it to me, but there when I see somebody just camping out, like, hey, come on, hit me in the face with your entire body. I'm like, ah. Like, I would rather them make it look like they're going to try to catch them and throw them or punch them or something. Oh, man.
Like, you know, Keith Lee, yeah, you know, when he worked with me and him on the Indies, they used to do the spot where me and him used to do a suicide dive, and then Keith used to catch her. Like, I don't mind
Yes.
spots like that. We just when they
Yeah. I like spots like that too. Yeah, completely. I'm okay with that. Like, I want them to at least make it look like they want to catch them to throw them down, not just catch them to save them.
I think, to be honest, I think that sometimes I think the young got in particular can treat wrestling like a video game sometimes. I do think they get a lot of unfair criticism, but I do think sometimes it can be warranted.
Yeah, I'm with you there for sure.
I'm not in the Jim Cornette camp that they're killing the business, but I do think they do tend to treat it more like a video game. But I don't think they're killing the business.
Yeah. Well, WWE doesn't even have a video game right now. Theirs was so bad. So I don't know. They would, if they treat it like a video game, their show's going to be even worse because they just put out one of the worst wrestling games of all time.
To be honest, I stopped playing the video game after 2018. It was just boring to me. I understand why people like them, obviously, but to me it was boring, like the video games.
I'm a big video game fanatic for wrestling video games. Like I'm a big Fire Pro fan. I love WrestleFest. They got that Retro Mania game that's coming out soon that I like. But I was disappointed in last year's. I'm glad they're taking a year off to make it better. UFC does a game every 2.5 years, and it ends up pretty good.
I heard rumor that AEW are making a video game. Is that true, or is that just speculation?
I think they're looking into it for sure. I think they want to make sure that they have something really good and special, because the right video game can really make your fan base just fire up. Like WCW has helped out big time when they had really good video games. People figured out who they were and really loved their work and all that stuff. But yeah, to me, I think they're waiting until they find something special.
I really want AEW to see, even though I don't like some of their bands, I think they can be a bit too overboard. But I do like I like a lot of the wrestlers, to be honest. I love Cody, I love the Butts. I don't love the Butts, I like the Butts. I love Kenny Omega, obviously I love Jericho, so it's just a solid roster. I love Sammy Guevara as a performer. And just everybody like that.
Yeah, I'm really high on Britt Baker and MJF too. I think Wardlow is really, really good. He surprised me. Luchasaurus is very good. They have a really good roster. I do think they went a little bit heavy on signing some former WWE people. But other than that, they've got some really good people that are getting their first exposure in AEW.
To be honest, I thought Britt Baker would have been a good first women's champion if she came in with this character. But obviously they decided.
Yeah. That's the thing. Everybody knew that they wanted to make Hangman Page and Britt Baker like the two top people. So they kind of rejected them. Now they're super over, so it all worked out.
Like, no offense to, I can't even say her name, but the woman that was first women's champion.
Riho.
I always mispronounce Japanese names. That's why I don't cover Japanese wrestling, because I can't say half of the people's names. So instead of me botching half of the names, I just don't cover it in my videos. So you know what people are like. You make one mispronunciation, and then all of a sudden you can get criticized. You can get criticized for not knowing what you're talking about, and it's just long. Like, you know what I mean?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Like, do you know what I mean? I'm just rambling. My apologies.
No, it's okay. Yeah, the thing that stood out to me about Britt Baker and Adam Page, I don't know if you remember their first press conference that AEW had, but Adam Hangman Page came out and he said, "I want to be AEW champion." And I think that they thought it was a safe thing to do because Omega, the Bucks, and Cody were all VPs. So they couldn't come out and say that because people would be like, oh, they're booking themselves to be champion. But instead, people looked at it and they said, oh, well, that's their buddy. That's their buddy, Hangman Page, and that's why he's going to get a push. And he got rejected for a long time. Now he's just one of the most over people there is. When Britt Baker got signed, she was their first female signing. And because of that, everybody looked at it like, okay, she was their first female signing. She's their chosen one. And you know how people react when they know that somebody's the chosen one in wrestling. And she changed things, and she is amazing as a heel. She's hilarious.
I love her stick with Tony Schiavone. I think.
Oh, God, it's so good.
In reality, I wish Tony would turn heel and just be a manager.
It'd be great. I like Rebel with her too, though. Like that girl that runs around with her. Yeah. I think she's really good too. But I think Tony Schiavone at some point has to help Britt Baker win the title or something.
Every single time she comes out, it can be her own personal announcer, and it can have a little table called the big table, and you could even have Rebel on there, give her her own little personal commentary team.
Oh gosh, that would be pretty good. I think that would be really good. I like that. Rebel has been very good. She used to be in, a lot of people don't realize she was in Impact Wrestling, TNA, for a little while. But she's very good. She does makeup for a lot of people in AEW too.
Yeah, I believe she was in a stable called the Menagerie Room with my and Crazy Steve, Rob Terry Under Armour, wasn't he? I believe it was Rob Terry.
Yeah, they worked out. They helped launch Crazy Steve.
I'm surprised he never worked in WWE because he was signed to them for a little bit, wasn't he?
He was for a little bit. I feel like for some reason I thought that he got out of wrestling, but I don't know if he did. I'm not sure I'm not even sure what he's doing. I mean, I thought that he would eventually work there.
I did not watch him practice this week because he was only in practice, wasn't he?
Who, Rob Terry? Rob Terry wasn't on there this week. No,
I'm on that
Crazy Steve.
Because they're doing this whole reality show, aren't they? Like,
oh yeah, he was on there. The Wrestle House thing.
Yeah.
That thing is so wild. Oh my God. I read the recap that one of my writers did about that. And I was like, what is he talking about? Then I went and watched the episode and I was like, oh, okay.
I personally feel like Impact Wrestling are so underrated right now. If they had AEW funding, they would be amazing.
Yeah, I think they would too. They need the same direction too, though.
Whoever's to be like the main booker is doing an amazing job in my opinion. Yeah. Is it Jimmy Jacobs or do you know who the head booker is for TNA?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. You cut out again. Sorry, my internet is cutting out a little bit.
No, I said, do you know who the head booker is for Impact?
I think it's Scott D'Amore. I think it's Scott D'Amore that makes all those decisions, but I know that Jimmy Jacobs and R.D. Evans help write the show.
Whoever does it, they're doing an amazing job because I think it's the most consistently good show every single week. Obviously, it's not perfect, but I do think a lot of people tend to sleep on it just because of their history. Like for a long time, their Impact was terrible. When I'm not gonna lie, when Hogan was there, and people like that.
Yeah, I didn't like it back then. It was definitely slowing down for me then, but now I think that they've got a pretty consistent, cohesive show, and it ends up being pretty good every week.
You know, Chris Bay. Obviously,
Yeah.
they released a video of him holding a TNA Division Championship belt when he was a young kid. And
Oh yeah.
I find stories like that really, really emotional because it's always nice when somebody can live out their dream.
There's a video out of Kiera Hogan when she was a teenager too, talking about how much she loved the TNA knockouts division compared to WWE's women and all that stuff. I mean, they're now getting to a point where people are going to wrestle for them that grew up watching TNA, and that's not something that they had before. They didn't have. I mean, everybody either grew up watching WWF or WCW. Now they're finding people that grew up watching TNA, and I think that's very cool.
I personally love the Rosemary character right now. Obviously, a lot of people prefer it as like the evil queen, if you know what I mean. But I personally love her character right now.
Yeah, I think Chris Bay is who you mentioned earlier. I think he's a good one. I hope Willie Mack is staying around. They have a really good roster.
I love the Susie character as well. That's a complete 180. That is a complete 180 from what she did before as Sue Young. That shows.
Yeah, I didn't recognize her at first. I was like, is that really her? Her paint works just as good as a mask because I did not know what she looked like underneath there.
I did. I'm not trying to make smart ones, but I did. Because I saw it in Humor a couple years before she,
Oh yeah.
before she
I
went to do.
forgot about that.
So I did have some suspicion. What she, I couldn't remember that, but I do remember seeing her a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean she's really good at transforming herself too, because like you said, she was completely different with and without the paint.
I think if she was to be, I don't know how old she is, but I think she's in like her early 30s or maybe even late 20s. I think
Yeah, she's 31.
she thinks she's a bit too old to go to WWE for their standards. Because a lot younger women don't know for some reason.
Yeah, they are changing that though. They don't have as strict of a policy anymore on that. So that's good. They're stepping outside the box and just signing talented people, which is good.
Of course, they signed Mercedes Martinez, didn't they? Before AEW
Yeah.
got her. She's really another lady I'm a really big fan of.
And she's 39 years old, Mercedes Martinez is. So that's a good one that they signed. I mean, she'll be 40 this year. If they can get a couple years out of somebody like that, I think it's worth it.
I personally don't think that should be coming up to the main roster, but I do think should be like the mainstay of NXT because they do need to have women as the mainstay of NXT because
Yeah, and I think she'll help coach people too. Like she's very good at helping people learn, which is important there.
yeah, because obviously they need to have more females obviously as trainers because I think they only have one full-time trainer and that is Sarah Stock, isn't.
Yeah, I think so. Sarah Stock is on the main roster. I think Sarah Amato
Yeah,
might be at the Performance Center.
that's all. I couldn't remember what that name was, but you
Yeah,
know what I'm talking about, don't you?
yeah, for sure.
I just think the whole industry as a whole is really good right now. I mean, It's not as popular as it once was in the Attitude Era. But it's a different time in the business, and it's a different time in society. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I think,
it's more spread out right now, which is good. There's something for everybody. Hopefully, if and when things go back to normal, things will recover a little bit. But it all comes down to making good stuff. That's the most important thing.
I think we need to have a new backdrop of creative writers that actually want to write wrestling. Because just recycling the same people over and over again is not going to help the industry evolve, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you gotta have interesting stuff. That is the most important thing.
Like, I love people like Paul Heyman, but I don't think in 2020 he's a really good. I don't think he's a good enough writer, to be honest. Like, I enjoy.
I think you
So what were
I
you
think you
gonna?
need to have people in their 30s and 40s doing that type of stuff. Like not people who are 50, 60 years old. I think they should have younger people associated with that.
Yeah, we get all respect to Paul Heyman, but what did he know what people like in 2020? Unless he got children that are like 21, 22. How did he know what they're like?
And that's the thing. When Paul Heyman was doing all that great stuff in ECW, he was like 30, 31 years old. So, I mean, that's what WWE needs. They need young, fresh people that love wrestling and love entertainment and can properly convey those stories.
We get over the battles. We have great wrestling, but not great stories, in my opinion, like sometimes. And I think that's not part of the problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, the good wrestling quality is very important. I look back at what we had 20, 25 years ago, and I'm like, damn, the wrestling now is so good. And that's like the biggest part to me. If you have really good wrestling, the rest should come easy. If you can deliver in the ring, the rest should come easy.
I understand that, but I also think knowing knowing who the wrestlers are is also important. Because you could be a great wrestler, but if nobody knows who you are, how they're supposed to invest in you as a character.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. Completely with you there.
Like, look at people like Cedric Alexander, great wrestler, but nobody knows anything about him really apart from he's a good wrestler. And that's why nobody really cares about him. Outside of the wrestling bubble, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the wrestling bubble is ultimately that's what you're catering to because you know they're going to be there. But dragging in people that I think that what people in the wrestling bubble like is actually what other people would like too. Because if it's good to the people that are watching all the time, I think it'll be good to the people that watch some of the time.
But my concern is when we die, yeah, who's gonna come and take our places as fans?
Well, that's the thing. We got to hope that they'll like what we like. And I mean, you can't represent an entire fan base because it's made up of millions and millions of people. Nobody's going to like all the same thing. You just got to hope that most of the people like what you're doing.
You could argue that's the problem with WWE. They try and cater to too many people. They just need to focus on the core demographic that they want to reach. Out of 200, focus on that.
That's what I think. Because I mean, look, the hardcore fans loved Becky Lynch, and when the hardcore fans loved Becky Lynch, the casual fans loved Becky Lynch. It worked really, really well.
Because the hardcore fans will educate the casual fans, and then the casual fans will become the smarter fans, and it'll go on like a cycle, won't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't think people who are casual fans would look and say, "Oh, that's what wrestling fans like." Well, I'm going to intentionally like something different. I think they'll probably be like, "Wow, look at the reactions that Becky Lynch is getting. What's the deal with her? She must be really cool."
And I like the fact she called herself the man as well. I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good thing to call yourself. Because obviously, it would have been
Yeah.
really, it would have been really awkward if you would have called herself the woman. Because obviously, Charlotte's already, Charlotte already does that to a certain extent.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think it helped a lot.
I've got a personal question. Have you ever interviewed Heather Monroe? Or, do you know who
Sorry,
I'm
what was that?
Have you ever interviewed Heather Monroe? Do you know who
I haven't. I haven't, but I would love to.
I think in a couple more years she'll be highly rated by AEW and WWE. To be honest,
Yeah, she looks like a star. I mean, I'm very familiar with her, but no, I haven't ever interviewed her.
if there's one female person from the Indies that I would love to interview, it's her, because I'm really fascinated by her story. Because I've seen a couple of her matches, and she's pretty decent. Obviously, she still can improve a bit, but I mean, it's not as bad as some people that I see out there. I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
I know she's very active out west, like in California and Colorado and stuff like that. So I've been able to see some of that stuff. I know that she worked a whole lot last year. Like she got a lot of bookings over the last year, especially. And then it kind of went away because of COVID. But man, I think that she was going to have a breakout year this year.
I'm telling you, in the next 5 years, she'll be signed to WWE or AEW. Because she got
Yeah,
like,
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see her get a look from one of them.
she
I'm
got
surprised she hasn't been on AEW yet, but I think that's because she's out west. I think if she was on the East Coast, they would have brought her in for an AEW dark match.
because she got that star quality that I think not many wrestlers have, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Is there anybody that you like from the independent scene?
Warhorse, AJ Gray, Danhausen, those three stand out to me. I really like those three, especially. They've stood out among everybody.
Do you consider Ring of Honor an indie? Because obviously people know they are, but they're really falling down a bit over the past decade or so.
No, I don't, because they are owned by Sinclair Broadcast Company, which is a major billion-dollar company that owns a broadcast network. So I wouldn't consider them independent.
I can't believe I just said that. That sounded really stupid.
No. I mean, there are a lot of people who consider Ring of Honor an indie still because it doesn't have the big, beautiful production and all that stuff. I mean, I don't think it's stupid at all.
Because I remember back in the day when they had people like Daniel Bryan
Yeah.
Brian Danielson and Nigel McGuinness. I genuinely thought Ring of Honor could be number 2, but then they got raped.
I think they were number 2 a couple years ago, very briefly, before AEW, before New Japan really exploded in the States. I think they were above Impact for like a brief period because they had Cody and the Young Bucks and they had all these big names. They were on cable and they were on syndication. They were all over the place. I think they were for a brief period. But now I'd have to put them at like number 4. I'd have to put them behind New Japan, AEW, and WWE. And you could even argue if you want to count NXT as a promotion, you could say they're behind them too.
I find it really annoying when people class NXT as a promotion because it's clearly not its own promotion.
Yeah.
It's WWE.
It's being supported. It's a subsidiary basically.
Yeah. Because I think it's stupid to call NXT its own promotion because we can have WWE superstars pop up on the weekly sometimes. I just find it really silly, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that for sure.
So I have a couple more questions and then I'll let you go, mate.
Okay.
So obviously, rolling a website, you can get accused of you can get accused of basically having a negative impact on the business. What would you say to people that say that?
That say what about impact?
Like people say what you do is basically hurting the business. What would you say to people?
That they don't have to read it if they think that. Ultimately, if they can take what they want, and if they like it, that's good. If they don't, that's fine too. I definitely understand, like, some people don't want to know the backstage. They don't want to know how the magic is made, so to speak. But I mean, they don't have to find out how. They can ignore it as best they can. And I mean, there are going to be people that feel that way, and that's okay.
I just think that as long as you do it in a tasteful way, which fight will just do it in a tasteful way.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it personally.
We try to do it in a tasteful but entertaining way. We try not to take ourselves too seriously.
Like what I mean by tasteful, like you don't go after people personally, do you? Like you know, if you think
No.
I know certain sites do tend to do that sometimes, and I just think there's no need for it. Like fair enough.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care about who's dating who or who's sleeping with who or anything like that. We don't take personal attacks at people like that. If they want to go on the record and they want to say something, then that's fine. But that's not what we do.
Like, I understand if you don't like somebody as a character or as a wrestler even, but don't take it to the level where you make personal attacks on wrestlers because I find that thing just stupid and annoying and it makes us all look bad.
Yeah, completely. These are characters, and there are people behind the characters. But yeah, it would just it's best to be kind to each other like that.
I feel mad for people like Nia Jax because I do think she brings a lot of it on herself, but I do think sometimes she does get a lot of unfair stick, like her Twitter. I think the handles it in the wrong way sometimes. You know what I mean? Like I just think she makes it like sometimes she makes it 10 times worse for herself when it comes to answering trolls back, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely know what you mean.
Like, do you agree with me or do you disagree? Because if you disagree, I would rather you say so, man.
Oh no, I agree. I agree. I mean, everybody's got their own view, but yeah, I agree. I wouldn't hesitate to tell you if I disagreed.
Because some people, you can try they disagree with me, but they don't really want to call me out on it. So, if you,
Hey, that's what we're here for, is to have a conversation, right?
I do think that Lion Cats is a bit, I don't want to say, but I love saying before, I don't like to call people bad in the ring because I can't do it. So it would be a bit of a hypocrite to say
Sure.
that. But I do think,
Sure, but ultimately it's about opinion. It's just it's an opinion, and that's okay.
of course, but for me, yeah, I think in WWE that I put it like there at the end of the day, she's like saying to them, put me on put me on TV every single week, you know, profile matches. Is she? I mean, WWE's decision. So
Yeah.
I think you have to look at WWE for that, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Um, yeah, ultimately about the criticizing thing, like whether you can get in the ring or not, you know what you like and you know what you don't like, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with not liking something or liking something. It's a matter of personal taste. And yeah, you're more than welcome to extend your opinion on that too.
Of course, sometimes, yeah, I can turn the conversation in just to my personal opinion, and I do need to get that stop doing that. But sometimes
Sure.
I to get
It
that.
doesn't hurt anybody.
I to get wrapped up in the conversation so much that I forget it's supposed to be an interview. It just turns into me basically, you know. So my
I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
so my apologies if I came
Oh,
across
don't apologize to me. I've had a blast.
like obviously 'cause I know you're not like a serious. I know you don't mind having a normal conversation, of course, because that's what you do every week. But
Yeah.
I would know that if I was interviewing a wrestler, for example, I would try and stay on track a bit more because obviously,
Hey, I like talking about anything and everything, my dude. We talked about wrestling. We talked about MMA. We talked about WWE Creative. We talked about Impact's show. We talked about that weird reality show that Impact has going on right now. We talked about a lot of stuff.
speaking of impact, do you know Johnny Stringer's character? I think it's really underrated. You know what I'm talking?
He's better there. He was in WCW, ECW, WWE, and TNA, and he's better now than he was in any of those. He's pretty good.
I I think if he was a bit, I think if he was a lot younger, WWE would take a. I don't want to say they would take a chance on him in the main roster. Well, he's not NXT. I think he could be a solid veteran for them.
Yeah, I think that they would at least try him out as a coach at the very least.
Yeah, at the very least. Because as you say, it's been everywhere, so he must have some knowledge. Like, you don't spend 30 years in the business and basically know nothing about the business. Do you? After 30 years, you must know something. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, for sure. He's a really good mind too. I interviewed him a few months ago, and he had a lot of really good insight.
so if you could pick 5 wrestlers to be a trainer, either in WWE or outside WWE, who would you go with?
Shane Helms for one, because he's done everything. But there are a lot of people. It's hard to really tell who would make a really great trainer. I would want somebody who was still in ring shape. That way they could show me a little bit of everything. Shane Helms is one of the main ones just because he can do every single thing.
I think I think Finn Balor will be a good trainer because
Yeah.
he had done it before. I believe he trained Becky Lynch didn't know when he was really young.
He trained Jordan Devlin too.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, because that's what they call him, little. little thing that I don't know what some people do.
Yeah, I think that he would be a good one. That's an underrated one right there. I think that would be really awesome.
I think AJ will be a good trainer from an in-ring standpoint.
I do too. I think he would be impatient though. I think he would get frustrated when people messed up.
To be honest, it doesn't seem like a really good communicating, to be honest. Like the way he handles certain situations, I don't think he'll be a good trainer because of that, to be honest. But as I said, in the ring, he would be amazing as a trainer because he's been all over the world.
Yeah, that's the thing. He has a lot of experience, but you also have to wonder how he would handle those specific situations, like you mentioned.
I think Christopher Daniels would be.
That would be a really good one because he can do everything. He can still do almost everything.
If AEW don't make him a trainer, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing.
I think they will eventually, for sure. He's already working in the office, so to speak, for a lot of stuff. He
And
helps scout a lot of talent too.
I think Kazarian would be another good one, even though he's not as big a name as Christopher Daniels or AJ. He's obviously been everywhere that he could want to go, so he's obviously have experience, and I think he could be a really good trainer.
Yeah, I think he would be a pretty good one as well because Kazarian's been a little bit of everywhere too. Japan, Ring of Honor, WWE, TNA, and AEW.
I think Kazarian's really underrated, to be honest. I think
he's very good. Very good.
but a lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves from a character perspective. I think this is just my opinion, but I think because he's been with Christopher Daniels for such a long time, I think he gets forgotten about by certain fans.
Yeah, I think it's very clear right now they're being used to help get Scorpio Sky over, which that's fine because they're both towards the end of their career. But yeah, they're both very underrated because they can both bring it in the ring still, both he and Daniels.
Another person that I really like, I think MJF is WWE bound at some point.
Oh, I think he's going to stay with AEW. He likes it there, from what I understand. He loves AEW. At one point, I had heard him say that he wanted to be there for the rest of his career, but things change, as you know. WWE might come and offer him a ton of money.
I was gonna say money talk.
It sure does.
I'm really surprised easy free to not work out in WWE, to be honest. Like, why would you bring somebody back a second time if you don't have anything for them, to be honest? Really annoying.
Yeah, I'm surprised too. I thought that he was going to work out there, but they clearly just don't know how to use that guy.
From a fan perspective, I was really confused when he went back for a second try. I mean, I understand from a wrestler perspective, but from a fan perspective, I was thinking, why are you going back there again, mate? They didn't really use you right the first time, so they're not really going to use you right the second time. But saying that, you did grow as a performer, didn't he?
I think it was because he thought that they would see what he did outside of the company and they would be like, "Oh, okay, awesome. Well, we can use this now," because he never got that shot before.
And obviously, I'm not even a game. I just thought it was really confusing from a fan perspective. But obviously, I don't know what goes on inside his head. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that he wanted to give it a shot, and now I don't think he does. I think he regrets it because he knows what happened, but he made some good money there too.
so sometimes it's all like the money work, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
look at Nakamura. Wrestling wise, he probably preferred it in New Japan, but money wise, he probably preferred it WWE. And I think as
Yeah,
fans,
he's doing good financially, and right now he's not wrestling that much. In New Japan, he was wrestling a lot more, actually. Well, maybe not more, but a more physical style too.
Ali can go surfing.
Yeah, yeah, that's what everybody says. They're like, "Oh, he just loves that he can go surf now." So I mean, that works out for him.
Fair play to him because he had a really good run in New Japan. If he wanted to,
Yeah, he did.
if he wanted to go back there, I would imagine he'll be a main star in the first night.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but when he went to WWE, a lot of people were like, "Oh, maybe he'll last a couple years and he's going to wind down his career and all that stuff." He's wrestled over 550 matches in WWE now. He's just there. He's there. I mean,
And
that's over 100 matches a year.
and don't forget, they're not 5 minute matches. They're like 20 minutes. Sometimes they're like 20-minute barn burners with people
Yeah, exactly.
AJ Styles and so on and so forth. So he's definitely
Yeah,
putting in the work. Anyway,
he
mate.
for sure is. He is.
Anyway, mate. I know this was supposed to be an interview about you, but I just sort of went off the rails a bit there, so I apologise.
Oh, don't apologize to me. My bladder is aggressive right now, though.
Oh, sorry, mate. Just one more.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
So, how would you like to be remembered? Either by your family or friends, or by your people that go onto your website, or by anybody?
From a work perspective, hopefully somebody that entertained and informed. As a friend, just somebody who tried to look out for everybody's best interests.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I know we went a bit off the rails that time, but
No,
I hope you guys enjoyed it to a certain extent. Because I enjoyed it, and I hope you
I
enjoyed
did
it.
too. I did too. Hopefully, I can come back on sometime in the future.
Yeah. So speak to you later, guys.